I'm UC Farm Advisor Kamyar Aram, and today we're in a young pomegranate orchard, and we're going to install some Aerometer watermark soil moisture sensors and show you the process with the help of my assistant Holly. We're going to make a little video of how we install these sensors and set them up. So here we go. So first, just let's have a quick overview of the parts, pieces, and tools that mainly we need today. First, of course, we've got our sensors here. They've already been installed on these PVC tube extensions according to the depth we're going to be burying them at. So here are the sensors on the tip. These have already been soaked. The recommendation by Aerometer is that in fact they be soaked and dried out several times before installation, and then finally they should go into the ground wet. So these were soaked before, but here in the field we even put them in a bit of water here. So then we have the tools for actually digging the holes where we're going to insert the sensors into. And this is actually the Aerometer tool. It goes all the way down to 4 feet. We're going to be using it that deep. It has different segments and it can be kind of assembled for different depths as needed. And the important thing is that we've gone ahead and marked the depths that we need with tape, so that when we're digging in, we'll know how far down we need to go. And then we have another regular soil probe, and this is helpful. We'll often do, this is a little bit shorter, so when we're putting in at 8 or 16 inches, we can use this one as well. And then we have a post where this data logger is going to go onto. We have these PVC fittings we're going to use to build a manifold, and a bit of PVC pipe to connect them, the pipe cutter. And then we have a stretch of conduit that the wires from the sensors are going to go pass through to get to the logger. Then we have the bucket we're going to use to make the mud slurry to make sure we have a good contact when we install the sensors. And a little bottle for conducting water. A jug of water is always good. It's also helpful for cleaning tools and hands. And that's it for the most part. So we've already considered where we're going to put these sensors. So this is the spot we've chosen. It's near the edge of the orchard, but not too close. The soil here, we've looked at a soil map. Actually use UC Davis's Soil Web, great resource to look at soil surveys, and determined that the soil here is pretty uniform. There's a little bit in the back that's different, but it's just a small bit. So right now we're putting in one sensor. Ideally, with different soil types on an orchard or any site, you'd want to put at least one sensor station in each soil type area. But we have a pretty uniform soil across most of this orchard, and we're going to install the sensors between 2 representative trees here. And this is a younger orchard. Some of the trees had been replaced, but the spot we've chosen should be pretty representative of the whole block, and that's what we're aiming for. So we're going to build a manifold here for the wires, and you kind of see eventually where that fits into system, but we need to do this early on. Is the wires from each sensor at the end of these PVC pipes. They're just the PVC will fit into each of these, and we need one facing up to go towards the logger. And we're just going to prepare this from taking a length of 1/2 inch pipe and cutting it to about 1 1/4 inch length. So just using a PVC pipe cutter, so about right there. And we could measure these out, and really should have prepared these back in the lab, but didn't have time today. So here we are, and we're gonna do it here. Okay. And so that should allow us to complete our manifold here. And we've got 5 sensors. So we've got the elbows on the ends, 2, and then 3 sensors in between, and this one for going up. And there's a little gap here, so I'll probably trim that down before we put it in. Okay, so here we have our sensors. They are already mounted on a PVC tube. This is SDR 13.5, the lighter PVC tube, and there's a lot of resources and online videos as well. We'll show you exactly how to set these up, but we've already set them up at different lengths. So the tallest one is going to go the deepest in, that's at 4 feet, 32 inches, 24 inches, and 16, and finally the smallest one is 8 inches. They are soaking in water right now. The recommendation is to plant these wet, and probably a little bit of drying out wouldn't have hurt them, but it's nice we've got them in, we've got water out here, so, and the bucket. So here they are, and we're ready to put them in. Okay, so we're between the 2 trees we've chosen here, but I'm going to put the sensors closer to one tree, as there's probably going to be a little bit more root activity closer to the tree. In this case, these are young trees, and the exact middle point between them will probably not have as many roots. So we want something, again, always thinking about what's going to be representative of the soil profile. And your thinking may differ a little bit from mine, but that's ultimately what we're going for, is what's going to be representative. And so we place our manifold here to kind of mark where we're going to sink our sensors. And the next thing we're going to do is then plant our post right behind that. So, and the other thing to point out is that we're going to be between the 2 drip lines. We don't want to be under them, as that won't be as representative. And we want to be in the tree row to be out of the way of orchard activities. So we're going to go basically right down the middle in this case, between the 2 drip lines. And they may be pushed out further in the future, and the sensors should still be in a good place. So just a little bit offset behind these is where I'm going to pound this post in, which is going to hold the data logger in place. So here we go. And ear protection is probably advised in most cases, especially if you're doing a number of these. Okay, that's our post. So we're ready to start basically digging out the holes to put the sensors in. Again, there's our manifold that's showing the areas, and I've actually marked them out with little pieces of pomegranate twigs, or you could use skewers just to mark out where you're going to put things in. This is going to give us a bit of a spread using each sensor with a different mounted tube. Aerometer actually makes watermarks so that you can install them in a single rod, and that might be desirable in some cases. But there are other advantages to having them separate. If you needed to pull them out or service them in any way or replace a sensor, you just deal with one. So here, and we're going to start with the deepest one, and I'm going to put that on the outside with respect to the tree. And so here we go. We're going to maybe even just go right over that, where that marker is, and we need to dig this out all the way to 4 feet deep. So, and a little bit of a rotation movement. And we'll see, this is in late July, so the soil is drier. With drip irrigation, it's harder as the soil dries out more. So this would have been ideal to do really earlier in the season when the ground's more moist and we can dig a little bit easier. There we go. And we do need to have just enough space from the post so this thing can turn. And so as we get down, we're going to take a little bit of water, pour a little water to kind of firm up the sides of that hole, pull it out with a twisting action, not to disturb things too much. And we're going to put that in a little bit of water we have here. Maybe that's even too much. And this is what we're going to create the soil slurry that we're going to use to make a good seal in here. And this is where we start to get dirty. So I'm going to go back into that same hole and just work my way down until I can get to this 4 foot 48-inch marker. And this is being very nice and friendly so far, so that's great. It's showing promise that it shouldn't be too hard to get down. We start with the 4 foot one because that's going to be the hardest one, right? And here we go. I see really now I have probably a little too much water in here, but hopefully that's not a big deal. We're still just making a slurry. Good to have some kind of something to help poke things out with. Wow, this soil has been really helpful. We're down to the hilt, which is really our 4 foot marker. And actually now a good time to point out that we need to go a little bit deeper than the exact 48 inches we're aiming for. We want the center of that sensor to be at the depth we want. So we go just a little bit past that. Again. Okay. So really accommodating soil today. That's great. And so once we have the soil in there, I think again I have a little bit too much water. This is something very basic. There's different ways to do this, but now we have a very kind of heavy clay loam here in Brentwood. I'm going to give that some good stirring. It takes a while to get the soil to break up. Again, it should be a little bit less water. We're aiming more for a slurry than something so soupy as this, but as long as we get some of that soil in there, that should work. It should be all right. So it takes a little while to make sure we've got a good suspension or good mixture, a good slurry. Sometimes break up those little particles. Okay. It's not necessary, absolutely, but it does help to have a long neck funnel. Give this a couple of stirs and we'll put some of this slurry down here. Okay, now the big moment. We're going to take our longest sensor assembly and feed it down. Now, these sensors can be installed without the PVC tube housing. It does help to protect the wires from rodents, for example, but it's not absolutely necessary, and Aerometer does sell a tool that can help you sink this thing all the way down. But the PVC tube is nice for, among other things, a nice handle to actually push the sensor all the way down. So here we go. This is the big moment, and we're going to feed it down. And there it goes, very good. And we've already marked what we want that blue tape, that's at 48 inches, to be below the soil line just about. So there we go. We got it just where we wanted. Beautiful. That makes it very promising, because if we've got it, we get the 48 inch down, then the other ones should go pretty easily. Mix the slurry a little bit more. Again, the funnel is helpful but not necessary, and we'll just fill behind it. Try to get as much of that solid soil in there as possible now. But that slurry is really what's going to help make that sensor connection to the soil, which is critical for the function of these guys. So that's really an important step, is this slurry. Okay, a little bit more water. And there we have it. Okay, now it's time just to repeat for the other ones. This is more like what we want with a slurry. Again, this clay soil just doesn't dissolve very easily. So it takes quite a bit of stirring and pounding to get that slurry where we want it. Again, this slurry is key, because we need that contact between the sensor and the soil that allows the movement of water back and forth, which really is key to accurate measurement. First, a little slurry, of course. last one. And let's get that. Yeah. And you can see that goes fast. I mean, that 8 inches is not much. There it is. How do we determine the depths here? Some of it is using basically just trying to cover the root zone. And there's a lot more background to that. Maybe we'll address that in a separate video sometime. But I think with 8, 16, 24, 32, and 48, we're really covering the root zone and probably going a little bit deeper. 48 inches, probably not a lot of roots. I'm not as familiar with pomegranates, but generally for orchards, we don't need to go that deep, but it actually helps us know what kind of profile we're starting with at the beginning of the season, because these will stay in through the season and through the winter as well. And also how far down our irrigation is getting and how far down our depletion is. Maybe there is some uptake down that deep. Okay, here we go. One last effort at making a slurry. Probably the least fun part of this process, or it depends, maybe depends on your tastes. Okay, there we are. And now we have our 5 sensors in here. The manifold, we'll clean that up in a moment. Everything's set, everything went pretty smoothly. I think we were lucky. It's not always that easy, and especially this time of year. The ground might be dry and hard, but in this case, perhaps because it's been well irrigated, it was pretty easy to get down, even down to 4 feet, 48 inches. So it's at this point that it's critical that we keep track of what wire belongs to which sensor, because that's critical when we load them into this to the logger. We want to be sure we have the right depths for each wire set. And so I start usually by just having this dotted pattern. We have 5 sensors. 5 is the deepest one. 1 is the shallowest one at 8 inches. And then later on, we'll label them with some tape. But at this stage, because we're going to cut this off, that's how I do it. You just want to make sure you do it somehow where you can keep track of it. As you feed the wires, you'll see, into the manifold and the conduit, you want to make sure you know which one is which. That's the key. So now at this step, we just start feeding the wires through the manifold here and reassemble it and then mount it on top of the ends of our tubes that are coming out of the ground. So this is not an absolutely essential step, but I like to do this. I tend to always be a little bit cautious, and you can always save a little bit of the extra cable by just folding it over and stiffing it down into the tube. And that way, that gives us, in case we ever find ourselves short on wire, we can always pull out a little extra. So just as a little reassurance here, that's all that is. And it'll fit, as long as we don't kink the cable very severely. There should be no problem in damaging it or causing problems for getting the signal, and I've never seen that. So just a little something for the future, just in case. Okay, so we've fed the wires through here, and I'm still going to pull them a little bit more, and now we're getting really close to putting the manifold all together, pulling the excess of these cables through. And of course, this is where a little trial and error to see which is which. And there it is. Kind of an above ground assembly. It shows us where each sensor is and keeps the wires nice, clean, and protected. The wires can be underground, but to keep them from damage from rodents or equipment, this is a really nice bit of housing to have. And now this end we'll put through a little conduit and start getting towards installing the data logger. We're getting very close to the end and ready to install the data logger. And we've already brought the manifold, the conduit from the manifold, put some electric tape around there, secured it to the post, put another PVC T-fitting at the top just to split out these. There's two, there are two places where we can slip these wires into the logger box. And so it's nice to have that split and also to have the top of the conduit kind of protected from direct things just falling into it. This is a Watermark, just simple monitor, 900M. It works well for these Watermark sensors. The two wires at the end just go into these inputs. We'll show that a little bit more later. And then there's just two holes on the back that you can, I suppose, just drive a screw into a wooden post or something like that. In this case, I've installed a metal plate with screws and have these hose clamps, which are really convenient. So here it fits onto the post, and all we have to do to secure it is to tighten these clamps. So here we go. That's pretty secure. Could go a little bit further. Don't need to go crazy. So here we are, and we're ready to put the connect the sensors. Excellent. Okay, so Holly's going to demonstrate to us now how we connect the sensors. So first, we have at the bottom, there's a couple of entry points. You can actually loosen the nuts on them and feed the wires through. You see we've got yellow labels here that mark what each wire, which sensor it's coming from. So in order to make it easier to put them through, you can unscrew that and then you can tighten it back up. Now we could have probably put our labels a little bit higher to be sure we knew which one's which. We'll have to kind of trace them at this point. There we go, that's more like it, yeah. So there it is. We have everything connected, and now really it's just a question of programming, which I think we'll make a separate video for that. But basically a very straightforward data logger. You do need Microsoft Windows. That's the only operating system that the Aerometer software WaterGraph runs on. Okay, there you have it. Start to finish installing the Aerometer Watermark sensors, also installing the Watermark monitor and connecting the sensors. All we have to do now is program it. So, job well done.